Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Team Barca. In today's episode, we're going to look at 3 of the 4 new players who came in this summer to the club. Those are Pjanic, Pedri and Trincao. And what I wanted to do in this episode was to take a closer look at each individual player, see what they can bring to the club, see what their role is currently, and also moving forward. Can any of them get a starting position in the Gala 11? I think so, but let's take a look at it. Alright guys, the first player I'm going to be looking at is Pjanic. Of course, he was brought in the beginning of the summer. He was brought in to replace Arthur Melo in quite a strange transfer. So from the offset, it looked like Arthur was going to be sold for around 80 million euros, which at the time just blew my mind. I could not imagine which club were willing to pay that kind of money for a young, talented, but still very unfulfilled player in Arthur. Then he switched teams with Pjanic in a strange fiscal deal. Of course, that was just to balance the books, but as a Barca fan, we're going to just have to live with the fact that they changed clubs. We made a bit of money on it, which of course is fine, but we did get a 7 or 8 year older player. In my opinion, it's quite clear that Pjanic's real rival for a starting position is Busquets. So it's either going to be him or Busquets who gets to start next to De Jong in that double pivot role. But what can Pjanic bring that Busquets can't? Well, first off, I think he's more mobile. He's not a fast player, but he's definitely faster than Busquets. He has those few yards when he receives the ball, especially where he can just take 1 or 2 steps with a bit more pace than Busquets can. So they dribble quite differently. Also, I think he's much better in the long range passes. So those through balls and in behind balls, but also crosses from the outside, almost from the left and right wing, depending on which side he plays. Of course, for Barca, he's going to play more on the right side of the double pivot. In terms of defensive output, I think Busquets is still the better player. They have quite similar numbers, around 3 to 4 tackles and interceptions per game, each player. But I do think that Pjanic moves around more on the field. And just being that 1 or 2 step faster does help us in defense when we have to close down, especially shots from outside of the box. But then what does Busquets have that Pjanic doesn't? Well, Busquets has played his entire career at Barca, and that really does something to the way you think football and the way you play football. And one of the players he's played with his entire career is obviously the GOAT, Messi. Messi and Busquets has a very special connection on the field, and I'm sure to any one of you who's seen Barca play a lot knows this fact. So when Messi drops deep, he usually drops right in front of Busquets or right next to him. And that means that they can have these short interplay passes. And what that does is it drags out the entire defensive line of the other team. And then Busquets can either choose to pass beyond Messi into a Griezmann or a Dembélé, a Fati or whoever who's doing the run. Or Messi, what usually ends up happening is Messi gets the ball and he sees the run of Jordi Alba. And I think this connection between the 2 players is what makes Busquets so special. He knows exactly what Messi wants to do. He knows exactly the way Barca used to play at least. And that is, in my opinion, his biggest strength. Of course, we shouldn't take anything away from Busquets' overall game. He's still great in the short pass. He's still great dribbling-wise, at least getting out of dangerous positions if he's being closed down by 2 or 3 players. And his defensive work is still excellent. But Busquets has never been a fast player. He's never been that mobile. And that just is even clearer now, heading into the latter stages of his career. So I do think that Pjanic can really push Busquets, and he can make an argument to Koeman saying that I'm younger, I'm fitter, I'm faster. I can definitely play this role at least as good as Busquets can. So I'm excited to see if Pjanic will overtake Busquets in the weeks to come, which I think he will. Although we do go into a few weeks now with a lot of games, and of course there needs to be rotation in the squad, so it might not be a strict transition just picking Pjanic always instead of Busquets. I think it's going to be fluid. There's going to be a lot of rotating, especially in the midfield. We might see Sergio Roberto being brought into the midfield, or even Alenya, maybe even Puig if he does well at practice. But I think after the El Clasico, I think that's the day Koeman is looking for. In the El Clasico, Busquets is going to have a very important role because he knows the opposing team. He's played against them on a number of occasions. He speaks the language. He understands the entire way El Clasico is played. When during the game it's important to push forward, when it's important to drop deep, and there his role is going to be quite important for Barca. But I think after the El Clasico we're going to see Pjanic really pushing Busquets for that starting position. Alright, let's move on to the next player, the 17-year-old, the possible future star, Pedri. So when Pedri was brought in this summer, we already knew a year in advance. Barca paid 5 million euros for him, an excellent deal. I think that's going to be one of the deals of this decade. Him being just 17 obviously meant that at the time when he was signed, I thought, all right, this guy looks quite exciting. I've seen him play a bit for Las Palmas, where I've also been personally seen him play. And I think what he can bring that others in his age group is the experience from being the key player in a division. So he played in the second division, where he was probably the best player, even though he was just 17. And being just 17, he's proving, just like Ansu Fati, that age is just a number in football, and it's got much more to do with the way you play, the integrity of your play, and the eagerness to learn. If you're willing to learn, if you're willing to show up on time, even before practice, stay after practice, you're definitely gonna improve. And that's exactly what we're seeing from Pedri. Bit of news on specifically that front. So Koeman, when he arrived, said that Pedri had to be loaned out. He said the same for Riqui Puig. But after he saw Pedri train, he publicly stated this, that he's never seen a young player with that much professionalism and eagerness to improve. And let's just let that sink in for a second. This guy has been a manager at Everton. He's managed the Dutch team, which is known for having young players. He's managed a bunch of other teams, but he's never seen a player with this much professionalism and eagerness to improve. I think that's just says it all. That's exactly the reason why Pedri is being introduced in the games already at 17. It's a key factor for Koeman. He knows that when I put Pedri on the field, he's going to give 100% every time. And that's exactly what you want when you're a coach. You want players that's leaving nothing on the pitch, going all out, giving everything, pressing when you need to press, defending when you need to defend, taking the ball, attacking the other players. And that is what Pedri does best. And that's why I think he will not be the star of this season, but for the seasons to come, this is definitely a guy to watch out for. If we take a look at his playing style, so when he was at Las Palmas, he was kind of the center, the hub for the team. So he played at number 10, but he also played on the right, at the wing. His acceleration is actually quite impressive. He's quite fast on the first like 10 or 15 yards, but he slows down a bit after that. So his top speed isn't just out of this world, but his acceleration is really good. His passes into the final third are very, very good. He has an eye for a good pass between the lines especially, but he can also cross the ball quite well. His dribbling ability and one-on-one is where he really stands out for being 17. He can take on one or two players, and we've seen that for some of the clips from Las Palmas as well. When he dribbles at pace, it's kind of like Trincao actually. it's quite difficult to get the ball away from him. He's a very, very tiny guy compared to some of the other players that he used to play with in the second division. Him just being 17, of course, he's going to grow a bit. It's kind of like Riqui Puig. They know they don't have the size advantage. They're not as athletic as some of the other players they're going to come up against, but they are definitely smarter than a lot of other people. And therefore, I think the way he plays, he uses the tactical awareness he has on the pitch. He knows what the other people are, how he can pass to them. But when he gets the ball at the number 10 slot on the wing cutting in, he can outnumber the opposition by using his dribbling ability. And that is such a good thing to be able to do when you're only 17. Usually we're seeing that wingers, or especially wingers actually, when they're 21, 22, 23, what they want to do is go out wide, get the ball, and try to dribble 2 or 3 players. We've seen this from Dembélé a billion times, and sometimes it works and it looks great and it's the most insane YouTube highlight reel. But a smart player is a player who can receive the ball, short pass, long pass, on the first touch, and that's exactly what Pedri does. But they can also dribble when they have to get out of tight spaces and tight positions, when they have to attack the goal. They're willing and able to dribble. And that is what makes Pedri great. And I'm, for one, so excited to see him this season, probably see him more in the cup games. And maybe if someone gets injured like Coutinho, where he's being introduced at the moment on the number 10, I think he is one of the players we really have to look out for. In my opinion, him and Ansu Fati are the future of this club, and I cannot wait to see what he can do. Alright guys, so the last person we're going to look at, the last player we're going to look at, of course, is Trincao. He was just like Pedri, bought before he was brought in, and he really didn't let that show. When he was bought in January, I thought, alright, great, exciting player. I've been following him for a while. He seems like he has a lot of potential and some interesting traits, especially for a winger. But when he was bought, he exploded in Portugal. He scored, I think it was 8 goals in his last 10 appearances. He showed that he can dribble, shoot from outside the box, he can pass, he can assist, he can even defend when he has to. He's quite tall, and therefore he can win balls in the air more easily than other players, which he's proved. This guy is the real deal. He is definitely an exciting winger going into the future. Also, he's 20, and being just a bit older than both Ansu Fati and Pedri. Of course, Ansu Fati is currently in the starting 11. I think that might change depending on how Dembélé does or Trincao does, but that's for another episode. But Trincao, just like Pedri, came in just ready to play, ready to show what he can do, and he's done it from the first minute he was put on the pitch. He showed that he's willing to do whatever the coach feels he needs to do. If he needs to go deep and defend, and just like Koeman said, the reason I didn't introduce Dembélé against Seville was because I wanted to bring in Pedri and Trincao, because I know what they're going to give. They're going to give 100%. They're going to give everything they have to defend the shirt, to defend the score of 1-1, and even push forward when they have to. So I think in terms of his playing style, it's important to look at. He used to be the hub at his team as well in Portugal, and that's going to be difficult at Barca. Pedri is going to play more centrally, where you're going to get the ball a lot more, but Trincao is going to be put on the wings, either right or left, preferably right. But I do think that he's going to have a lot of opportunities during the season to show exactly what he can do. He might be able to push Griezmann. I think it's going to be hard for him to push him straight out of the starting 11, but he might be able to push Griezmann to the top, push Messi to 10, and then get a position on the right in some games at least. What's interesting about him is the combination of speed and technique that he has, but also his physical appearance. So he's quite athletic. He is, I think, 184 centimeters tall, so he's quite tall for football actually. And I think if he does well just like I said, he might be able to really push Griezmann, which might be good for him. I'm excited to see what he can do defensively. I think that might be a big change in La Liga, because Barcelona often face a lot of counter-attacks. So if he is willing to do that, tracking back, using his pace to get back and defend on the right wing, especially if we play with Dest on the right back slot, he's going to have to do a lot of defending, as Dest is going to move forward and past him. So they're going to have to learn to play together. But I think Trincao, just like Pedri, is so exciting. I'm excited to see what he can do for the future. And that was it, guys. That was it from today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe. I'm just glad to do this. I love talking about Barca. If you have any comments, put it in the comments below and I'll get back to you. And there's nothing left for me to say than enjoy the Spanish guitar on the way out. Bye.